I would seriously question what kind of knowledge she has on filmmaking. I don't know what she's delved into. We don't exchange admirations, but
Clint Eastwood may be the epitome of cool, steely control on screen, but behind the scenes he carried grudges sharp enough to cut through Hollywood's toughest egos. Over the decades, he clashed with actors in ways so intense, studios kept the stories buried for years. Some feuds were quiet, some explosive, and one in particular, the third actor is so shocking it flips his entire legacy on its head. These aren't petty disagreements. These are the 5 actors Eastwood absolutely could not stand. Jean Seberg. By the time she joined Eastwood on the set of Paint Your Wagon in 1969, Seberg was a recognized talent, but also someone whose personal life and public stances carried a weight that often spilled into her professional environment. For Eastwood, who was already venturing into unfamiliar territory by starring in a musical, working with Seberg proved to be a unique trial in patience and adaptability. Paint Your Wagon demanded that Eastwood not only act, but also sing and dance, a far cry from the stoic Western persona audiences had come to know. Seberg, meanwhile, displayed a level of inconsistency that made the shoot increasingly complicated. Sources recall her frequently arriving late, grappling with choreography, or appearing emotionally distracted, leaving Eastwood to contend with both his own performance anxieties and the unpredictability of his co-star. Clint treated the musical as seriously as any dramatic role, a choreographer involved in the production explained. Jean seemed elsewhere, dealing with personal issues instead of focusing on the work. The contrast between their work ethics was stark. Eastwood approached every scene with precision, planning his movements and timing meticulously to ensure that each take captured the intended emotion. Seberg, by contrast, struggled with emotional regulation on set, which manifested most clearly during romantic scenes. Reports suggest that multiple takes became necessary as her mood swings influenced her performance. She sometimes challenged lines, questioned the script, or suggested changes, behaviors that Eastwood found disruptive to the flow of production. A script supervisor recounted a seemingly simple walking and talking sequence that became the site of mounting frustration. Seberg repeatedly stopped to ask about her character's motivations, forcing retakes that tested Eastwood's patience. Clint eventually stepped away briefly, the supervisor said, then returned to finish the scene, quietly but firmly. Beyond the practical difficulties, Seberg's post-production criticisms of Eastwood in interviews following the film's lukewarm reception added a layer of professional tension. While she expressed dissatisfaction with aspects of the shoot and reportedly questioned Eastwood's approach to the material, Eastwood himself remained silent. Those close to him noted that he rarely discussed Seberg, preferring to let the experience fade into memory. A friend recalled Eastwood saying, "Some people aren't cut out for the work. It's not their fault, but it's not something I need to repeat." Richard Burton. By 1968, Burton was already a cinematic legend, his career studded with Shakespearean triumphs and Hollywood blockbusters. Yet despite his undeniable skill, his work ethic and temperament were a stark contrast to Eastwood's disciplined, methodical approach. Their clash on Where Eagles Dare, the World War II adventure film that would go on to become both a box office hit and a television staple, was so pronounced that it left a lasting impression on everyone involved in the production. Eastwood, even at that stage in his career, had a reputation for precision. He arrived on set early, meticulously prepared, and expected the same from his co-stars. Burton, however, was in a turbulent personal phase, his high-profile romance and tumultuous marriage with Elizabeth Taylor drawing constant media attention. This pressure often spilled over into his professional life. Crew members recalled days when Burton arrived late, occasionally hungover, and sometimes still under the influence from the previous night's indulgences. Richard often showed up late, hungover, sometimes still under the influence from the night before, a camera operator later recounted. Clint would be ready at sunrise, watching Burton struggle through lines he hadn't studied. The friction between them was immediate. Eastwood's style emphasized economy, minimal takes, naturalistic performances, and a focus on capturing the moment efficiently. Burton thrived on intensity and improvisation, often pushing for extended rehearsal or multiple takes to refine his delivery. The tension became particularly evident during a pivotal sequence that required Burton to deliver an extended monologue. Accounts suggest that Burton demanded over 20 takes, testing Eastwood's patience and philosophy of one and done. A production assistant remembered, after the 10th take, Clint stepped aside and watched quietly. He wasn't outwardly angry, he just observed. The silent judgment spoke volumes. Eastwood valued professionalism and respect for the craft above all. Burton's approach, unpredictable and self-indulgent at times, represented everything Clint sought to avoid in a co-star. Compounding the professional challenges were Burton's occasional remarks about the project itself. He reportedly referred to action films as just a paycheck, a comment that, while perhaps harmless to some, struck at the heart of Eastwood's artistic sensibilities. For Clint, filmmaking was more than a job. It was a discipline, a craft that demanded commitment from everyone on set. Burton's cavalier attitude, whether intentional or inadvertent, only solidified his position as a frustrating collaborator. Yet, even amid the tension, Eastwood's assessment remained fair, if brutally succinct. He acknowledged Burton's immense talent, his commanding screen presence, and his ability to elevate material simply by being in front of the camera. But the wasted potential, the clashes of temperament, and the occasional disregard for the collaborative process left Eastwood with little warmth in his recollections. Years later, when asked about Burton, Eastwood's appraisal was famously brief. Talented guy, wasted talent. That simple sentence encapsulated not only the frustration of Where Eagles Dare, but also a deeper recognition of what could have been if two vastly different approaches to acting had ever truly aligned. Tommy Lee Jones, Eastwood, and Jones share a cinematic style rooted in subtlety, intensity, and minimalism. Their performances often rely on controlled gestures, piercing gazes, and nuanced delivery rather than overt theatrics. On set, however, these similarities created friction. Sources note that Jones, naturally dominant, sometimes attempted to take over scenes, drawing focus away from other actors in ways that Eastwood found at odds with his collaborative philosophy. Clint believes in actors listening to each other, explained director Wolfgang Peterson. Tommy has immense presence and naturally commands attention. That's a strength, but it can become a complication when the balance between actors matters for the scene. This tension was particularly noticeable in scenes where Eastwood's character, Secret Service agent Frank Horrigan, and Jones's antagonist Mitch Leary were in conflict. Even after a take was called, Jones occasionally remained fully in character, maintaining an intensity that kept the set taut. A sound technician recalled a moment during one of these confrontational sequences. After the director said cut, Tommy just stared down Clint. Clint looked at him, then walked away. It wasn't confrontational. It was more of a silent acknowledgement that their energies didn't need to merge. Such interactions, while subtle, contributed to an undercurrent of strain throughout filming. The most pronounced clash occurred during a key confrontation scene that demanded precision and timing. Eastwood's philosophy favored capturing the first take whenever possible, trusting in instinct and spontaneity. Jones, conversely, was known for iterating through multiple takes, shaping his performance with meticulous adjustments to tone, posture, and timing. On this pivotal scene, Jones insisted on executing several additional takes to follow his vision, creating friction not only with Eastwood but also with the rhythm of the shoot. While Eastwood deferred to Peterson's direction, he was visibly frustrated by the prolonged process and the disruption to the efficiency he valued so highly. This professional mismatch ultimately influenced Eastwood's decision to avoid future collaborations with Jones. While there was no personal animosity, their differing approaches to the craft made a lasting partnership impractical. Years later, reflecting on the experience, Eastwood's appraisal was pointed yet measured. Tommy's got his way of working. I've got mine. Sometimes different approaches should stay different. The comment captured a subtle but firm recognition that talent alone does not guarantee compatibility. Even two actors at the peak of their abilities may find that matching intensity and overlapping methods produce tension rather than synergy. Barbra Streisand. Unlike many others on the list, Eastwood never actually worked with Barbra Streisand on a film. Their decades-long feud was not born from a single incident or personal slight, but rather from an enduring clash of creative philosophies and core values. Eastwood, known for his minimalist, instinct-driven approach, and Streisand, celebrated for her meticulous perfectionism, found themselves at odds before a single scene was ever shot. The tension between them became public during the 1992 awards season, a year that highlighted their differing approaches. Eastwood's Unforgiven was a tightly controlled Western, praised for its narrative efficiency and emotional impact, while Streisand's The Prince of Tides, still unreleased at the time, was marked by expansive detail and lengthy production schedules. The awards season spotlight intensified the divide. Streisand, despite critical anticipation, was overlooked for a Best Director nomination, prompting discussions in the press about gender bias in Hollywood. Eastwood, however, privately framed the issue differently. Those close to him recall his pointed observation. Maybe if she spent more time making decisions and less time obsessing over details, she'd have finished more than 3 films in 15 years. For Eastwood, the heart of the matter was not gender politics. It was methodology. Streisand's painstaking, often controlling approach ran counter to Eastwood's commitment to decisiveness and efficiency. Where he valued trust in instinct and clarity of vision, Streisand prized exhaustive refinement, multiple revisions, and a meticulous attention to minutiae that could delay production. Their professional rivalry continued to simmer through the mid-1990s. By the time Eastwood directed The Bridges of Madison County in 1995, the contrast in their philosophies was undeniable. Eastwood reshaped the story through his minimalist lens, stripping away excess to focus on emotion and narrative economy. The film's critical and commercial success was, for him, a validation of his approach. That efficiency, decisiveness, and instinct-driven direction could achieve profound emotional resonance without layers of excessive detail. Observers note that Eastwood quietly took satisfaction in proving that a director's clarity and discipline could produce as much, if not more, impact than painstaking perfectionism. Even decades later, Eastwood maintained his distance from Streisand's orbit. He reportedly made subtle remarks about her perfectionism from time to time, always in a professional rather than personal tone. Those close to him emphasized that his disapproval was never rooted in animosity. It was strictly an assessment of compatibility. Eastwood's standards for collaboration, trust in instinct, efficiency, and authenticity remain uncompromising. Actors such as Hilary Swank and Gene Hackman have praised his clear, disciplined approach, highlighting how his method fosters focus, trust, and clarity on set. Leonardo DiCaprio. DiCaprio, in 2011, already a generation-defining actor, brought a level of preparation and intensity that could elevate any director's vision. But for Eastwood, it posed a particular challenge. The combination of DiCaprio's exhaustive approach and Eastwood's famously minimalist style created a tension that required careful negotiation on set. Eastwood's method is widely known. Efficiency is paramount, takes are minimal, and guidance is quiet but precise. He values spontaneity and instinct, trusting actors to inhabit a role with minimal interference. DiCaprio's process could not have been more different. He approached each scene with meticulous research, diving into the psychology, personal history, and motivations of his character, sometimes experimenting with multiple ways to deliver a single line or gesture. A script supervisor on J. Edgar described the dynamic as 2 languages trying to communicate. Both approaches were valid, both aimed at authenticity, but they clashed in execution. The tension became most apparent during emotionally charged sequences. One pivotal scene required DiCaprio, portraying the emotionally complex and increasingly isolated J. Edgar Hoover, to break down under pressure. On the first take, DiCaprio's performance was powerful and precise, capturing the layered vulnerability and authority inherent in the character. Yet, true to his method, DiCaprio requested additional takes, exploring subtle variations in inflection, pacing, and posture. By the sixth take, Eastwood, adhering to his philosophy, had moved away from the monitor, quietly sipping coffee while watching his lead actor repeat nuances he felt were already perfectly captured. The issue for Eastwood was less about repetition than the implied lack of trust in his instincts, a subtle challenge to his authority as a director. Throughout filming, the contrast in their styles was ever present. DiCaprio's thorough preparation often slowed the pace, creating moments of tension with a director who prided himself on rhythm and efficiency. Yet Eastwood maintained his trademark composure. Despite the strain, he never publicly disparaged DiCaprio and continued to direct with quiet precision. Likewise, DiCaprio showed professionalism, never allowing frustration to affect his work. Their collaboration, while challenging, resulted in a performance that many critics hailed as one of DiCaprio's finest. Nuanced, restrained, and hauntingly authentic. However, the experience took a toll. Sources close to Eastwood noted that he emerged from the J. Edgar shoot unusually drained, a rarity for a director of his veteran experience. The contrast in approaches had demanded more mental energy than usual, forcing Eastwood to adjust to an actor who required not just direction, but also patience and constant negotiation. While the collaboration produced a critically acclaimed film, it also established boundaries. In subsequent projects, DiCaprio's name was noticeably absent from Eastwood's casting considerations, a polite but firm decision reflecting the compatibility challenges they had encountered. What do you think about the actors that Clint Eastwood hates? Leave us your comments in the section below. We hope you have found this helpful video. Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you like it. Thank you for watching this and see you in the next videos. Goodbye.